Hello, lovelies. Welcome to another episode. I am so excited for today's topic and guest. I have Victoria Sotelo with us to talk about the relationship harmony and how to create your dream relationship. We talk about how to set proper expectations, how to work with creating harmony, what to do when there is disharmony, how to repair, and what might be some things that nowadays and the culture and life that we live, this modern life, what might be some things that create roadblocks for couples that create disconnects, and what might those be? And then we address how to identify core needs, core values, and then from there create a relationship vision that can guide your intentions and investments and habits and lifestyle that you set up for yourselves going forward so that you can create what you want and what you desire and what you dream of. We also talk about how to reprogram parts and your mindset and your approach and your experience so that you get out of your own way and you don't contribute to the stuckness, or you rather stop contributing to the stuckness, I should say, so that you can then put in the good stuff and create what you desire. So we do activations around that, and just know that the whole conversation is an activation. Just what we talk about will help you shift and up level your mindset and your approach to yourself and your relationship. We talk about self-regulation, personal accountability, and responsibility so that we are empowered in how we show up to our relationship and create the changes that we are desiring. We also talk about how to do the holidays, how to approach the holidays from a beautiful mindset so that we actually experience them better, and we take away what we desire from the holidays, which is more connection and more love and just more yumminess, not just the materials. So we talk about how to go about that and how to set ourselves up for a beautiful 2025. Stay tuned. You're in for a treat. Let me read you her bio and then we'll say hello to Victoria. Victoria Sotelo brings a heart of compassion and passionate energy for cultivating healthy marriages and sexual intimacy to her clients. She practices from an integrative model, incorporating the biopsychosocial and spiritual aspects of her clients' lives. Her excellent listening skills and problem-solving methods, along with her clinical experience, position her as a therapist with a balanced approach. Victoria holds a license in marriage and family therapy in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. Without further ado, let's say hello to Victoria. Hello, Victoria. So excited to have you here with us today.
Yes, I'm very excited to be here and engage in this conversation with you, Emma. It's a privilege to be on this podcast and get to chat with you and your guest.
I am super excited for this topic, and just because we had conversations about this already, you and I, and even before we started recording, your language and your take on the work with couples is so lovely. So I'm really looking forward for our audience to benefit from your wisdom, your lights, your love. I think that's going to be a really enriching conversation. And what I'm really looking forward to is that we're going to have a conversation about things that we want to offer our audience. But what's going to be really cool that I'm looking forward to is that we're going to implement a little bit of an activation here, a little bit of like an experiential piece, which I normally don't do. So that's going to be so fun. I'm really looking forward to that. So just a little heads up to the audience with this is stay open, because as you listen to these words, you will feel the shift in and of itself without even you having to do that much. So this is going to be a spectacular for you and for Victoria and I too, because as we do this, we activate ourselves. So it's going to be so good.
Yeah, it's exciting. Look, I mean, we all listen to lots of podcasts. We are constantly getting data brought into our lives through many different vehicles. And I think it's so important that we use some of the time when we're listening to a podcast to just reflect. So I want to give your listeners an opportunity to do that. I know that as time has gone on, especially over the last decade, I've learned how to pause even right in the middle of a podcast. Sometimes I may not even finish the whole podcast in that moment because I want to really hold on to a piece of information and let it digest. So I want to give your listeners an opportunity to do that today as we talk about healthy relationships.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I call that percolating, right?
Percolating, yeah.
Just pausing and just taking it in and be like, "Ooh, what is
Yeah.
that doing?" Right? So,
Yeah.
yes, so good. I'm so excited for that. Well, so why don't we start with, from your opinion and your experience, because as we know, you're a marriage and family therapist as well. You specialize in working with couples as well, and you know relationships intimately and, of course, professionally. So, from your take, what does a healthy experience, a healthy relationship look like?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we have healthy expectations for what relationships are going to look like. We
Mm,
live in a world, again, where so many relationships are scripted. We're watching most of these relationships through Netflix and Hulu and all these other vehicles. And we have professional people writing scripts for
mm,
people. So we have an expectation that that's kind of how our conversations are going to go with our spouses, with our children, with our family and friends. A healthy relationship looks like harmony, disharmony, and repair. And what I
mm.
mean by that is you're going to have seasons and phases where you feel really harmonious and connected and synchronized. There's going to be times, and they can be daily, weekly, monthly, maybe months go by before you feel that disharmony phase in your relationship. And you
Mhm.
want to know how to get back, how to get to the repair part so that you don't disrupt the entire foundation of the relationship. So a healthy relationship has those three characteristics in it. They don't look perfect. They sometimes are messy, but you're really persevering for your own growth in the relationship with this other person or people.
Yes. So, a couple of things just from what you said so far. You know, I love the observation that professionals are writing the scripts in the movies and in the shows, and they're so prescribed. And even I dare say that sometimes when we do some skills in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
it feels prescribed, right? So sometimes clients like, who talks like that?
Yeah.
Right? But so what I usually like to say is when we're in therapy, that this is just from where you're in conflict or about to get into conflict to be preventative. You don't have to talk like this all the time. In the prescription, it sounds prescribed at this moment because you're learning a tool, but then you can make it a lot more organic as you
Mm-hmm.
go, right? You don't even know that
Yeah.
you're using a tool. So that's point aside. But yes, the scripted scripts in the movies and in the shows. And I will add that we are taking, and I'm throwing myself on the bandwagon. We're taking advice from people who are even not professionals, like
Yeah.
YouTube,
Yeah.
right? People are just like, "Oh, this is what you should do for your relationship." And it's like, where's that stuff coming from? Like some of it is a
Mm-hmm.
little off, right? So I'm
Yes.
loving what you're presenting right now. That nothing is perfect. There is harmony, disharmony, and repair. I love that we could get into that in a second. That yes, everybody will go through the ebbs and flows. So right now, people who are listening might be struggling, and people who are not struggling might be listening also.
Mm-hmm.
Did I say that right? And so, regardless what state of life people or what season of life people are in, they will still find benefit here because we all go through ups and downs. And if we're doing
Yeah.
fabulous today, we might find a little bump in the road. And if you're in the bump in the road right now, you can get back up. It doesn't mean that you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So
Yes.
fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, really essential. Look, what we're going to be talking about from a professional and clinical lens, many of our shared colleagues in the field, peers that we really respect, have talked about this type of thing. And I'm not the originator of all of these terms that we're going to hear. Where I have the opportunity and recall, I love to resource people. So that specific idea, I know Terry Real talks about it. He got it from Pia Melody years back.
Mm,
And it's a great idea. I like to think of it when you stand in front of the ocean in the water. You can stand at the wake of the ocean, right at where the tide's coming in, and you can be standing there steady, and all of a sudden a bigger wave than you were expecting could show up, and all of a sudden you're like, we've all had this experience, at least I know I have, where you just fall
mhm.
into the
Yes.
water, or losing your sense of balance. So this is kind of the concept of harmony, disharmony, repair. There are times where you really feel like, where is my sense of balance in regards to this relationship, and how do I even hold on to my sense of self in the presence of
Love
these
that.
other people? So a healthy relationship is where you're practicing that, you're building what we call muscle memory in
Mhm.
that. And this isn't something you're going to check off a box. You got it today and you're never going to have to deal with it again. This is a lifetime journey. of learning how, because certain relationships, they really wound us and they go right to our core desires that we have. And so when that happens, it's really hard to stay steady, even if you're a professional and you've had
Yes.
years of training and experience. You're not always going to pick up that beautiful tool of reflective listening when you're in the middle of a fight, right? So
When you're triggered.
where you're triggered.
Yeah.
So, even in my 28-year marriage, I have to learn how to quiet my mind and calm my heart and remind myself of truth so that I can stay present. So, yeah, it's really important that we level our expectations. What is healthy? We don't want to catastrophize every problem. When a problem shows up repeatedly, there could be a pattern there that we need to address, but we don't want to think that just because a part of the relationship is suffering and struggling, that the whole thing is now destroyed. So
Right.
that's really what I want you to think about when you're thinking about health, that, hey, look, I could even look
Mm.
really beautiful and healthy and put together on the outside. And I could go and get a radiology scan and find out there's a growth or a tumor that I had known information about. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to get rid of my whole body because of that. I would want to address that problem. So we want
Right.
to kind of think about it like that when you're in a relationship and you keep kind of crashing up with the same pattern. You want to step back and get perspective. And that's what we hope is going to happen as we continue to talk.
I love it. I love both analogies about the ocean and about the radio scan. I was gonna say blood, check out your blood, but
Yeah.
like you might look beautiful and healthy, but your blood is a disaster. You have
Mhm.
cholesterol, you have all the things. But a tumor, I love that because yeah, we could cut out the tumor. It doesn't mean that you throw your whole body away.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good. So can you say a little bit more about what harmony might look like? This harmony might look like in repair. Just quick
Yeah.
highlights.
Yeah. So I think harmony is, especially in a relationship where you're invested long term. I'm thinking about long term
Sure.
relationships.
Yes.
You're really looking at your core values, right? In your core values, you're going to find the places of harmony with one another. And you're
Mm,
thinking about many different things, right? We practice with a family systems systemic lens, and that lens says, let's look at you biologically, what's happening in your body,
mm,
psychologically, socially, spiritually, what's going on in the course of your life. And so there's going to be core values that you have developmentally at different seasons of your life, right? I'm at a phase in life where I've raised 3 children, and my whole body's going through lots of different changes, right? So this is a new phase of life where I don't
yeah.
have to attend to the same needs that I used to. I want to know what I value, not just externally, but internally. So harmony looks like finding connection in relationship. It also looks like how I steady and hold on to myself when that connection is not present. That's also harmony.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a different of opinion. We're all living with big, strong, polarizing ideas in our culture. And how do I stay connected when I might not agree specifically
Mhm.
about a topic?
Mhm.
That can be harmony, right? Disharmony can be something as simple as you ask a little request in your home and nobody responds. You don't get your need met. You
Yep.
don't get your need met at all, or you don't get it met
Mm.
in the way you wanted. Or you get it met and somehow it's just rote and robotic. There's no real emotional connection there. That can
Mhm.
feel like disharmony.
Right.
Disharmony can also feel like wanting another child and your spouse is a strong no, right? It can
Mhm.
feel like you think investing here is wise and they don't want to spend another penny. So disharmony can show, it can, we're taught, the holidays are here and upon us. It can look like going and showing up in your family of origin home and reverting right back to those behaviors and habits that you thought you had healed from. That can feel like disharmony in that
Right.
moment. And repair looks like, first and foremost, getting perspective with yourself. So making sure you're responsible for how you think, feel, and behave. And you're owning that. You're not putting that on someone else. You're
Mhm.
noticing what your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are triggering within you. And then once you have some clarity about that, right, and you know what you want to communicate, you're communicating. If you go to make the repair while you're angry, while you haven't resolved what is really causing that pain, you're going to find the conversation quite explosive and unproductive.
I love that last piece. First of all, I love all of it. I love the examples and the description of harmony and disharmony. Yes, I think that a lot of people will resonate with all of that they could find themselves in those examples. And the repair piece, so good. I mean, I teach this all the time, like session after session, after hour daily with clients when we're in sessions that don't have the conversation while you're triggered.
Mm-hmm.
It's not gonna work. All the skills that you
Mm-hmm.
have are not gonna they're gonna be like, "Well, forget this skill, it's stupid, it doesn't work." It works when you use it properly, not in the moment that you're hot. It doesn't work when
Yes.
you're hot, right? So I love what you said about that, but more importantly, how you said that your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions are triggering you, because a lot
Yeah.
of times how easy it is to blame our partner, like, "You're triggering me,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are they really triggering you? You're making assumptions about what they're saying. You're assigning
Yeah.
motives. You have your belief system around that. You're assigning it meaning, right?
Yeah.
It's all internal. I also like to say things like the relationship is happening in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You're having a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your partner in your head. And so I love that, right? Take a chill pill, check out for yourself what's happening, and then once you have a handle on it, then go talk.
Yeah, there's a really beautiful piece that we can think about, right? When we're thinking clinically, we call this differentiation. And
Mm.
in clinical terms, differentiation is learning how to really stay connected to who you are distinctly and also stay connected to others. There's a
Love it.
lot of talk in culture around setting boundaries, right? And or the opposite of that. Hey, I had to get rid of all the toxic humans in my life, kind of thing. Right.
Mhm.
And look, some of us may have to go live on Mars if we do that kind of thing. But really healthy differentiation is when we have a solid sense of ourself taken from our core values. We have a flexible sense of ourself, meaning we can learn how to be in relationship with others, even if those others have different thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than us. And we don't lose our sense of self. And in order to do that, we have to quiet our mind and calm our heart. So that's self-talk and breathing. We
Mhm.
have to figure out how not to overreact to other
Yes.
people's overreactions. And
Mhm.
then we need to learn how to persevere for the growth that's going to come in healthy relationship.
Mm.
So what I'm talking about when I talk about that repair piece and taking responsibility, I think it was actually Pia Melody who came out with these little questions, right? This
Mhm.
is what I observed. This is what I tell myself about what I observed, right?
Hmm.
My friend walked in the door and walked straight to the television instead of saying hi to me. What I told myself is they're a real jerk and they're really so selfish, and all they cared about was going to see their show that they were rushing to see. And how that made you feel, or how that made the person feel. You build a whole narrative, like you said. You have your own relationship in your mind with this
Mm.
other person that they may or may not even know about. And so
Yeah.
it's really important. One of the most critical things, actually, if this is the only thing the listeners took away, it would be really powerful, that you really start to take responsibility and say this to yourself. Hey, look, I'm the only person 100% responsible for how I think, feel, and behave.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I really learned to tap into that truth for myself, I started paying attention to all the times I would say things like, you make me.
Yeah.
And we all can get caught up in speaking that way. And that language tends to be language that wants to find the blame outside of ourselves for what we're experiencing.
Yep.
And this is not to say that other people don't impact or influence us,
Sure.
because when you're being mindful of your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, you are also noticing the impact that your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors have on other people.
Yep.
No man's an island. So you're taking that into consideration.
Yep. And when the others have an impact on us, we could discern how much of an impact we allow that to have. Is it something that we want to take on, or is it something that we need to soothe, regulate, and address, and do whatever we have to do with it? So for sure, we are in charge of ourselves. We're the masters of our own selves,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bosses of ourselves, or whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
So good. So then, what might be some things you think that trip up couples, like roadblocks or unhealthy habits or some things that couples they might be fine. They're on the high in the relationship and all of a sudden that wave came. Like what might those things be?
Yeah, I mean, look, these are so varied. It depends, they're so specific to relationships, but we know some strong ones, right?
Yeah.
We know that couples are really conflicted with phone and social media use. It's become a huge topic. I face it day in and day out where
Mhm.
couples don't know how to get the attention of their partner.
Mhm.
They're really struggling to know, hey, is my partner looking at their phone because they are engaged in something important? Or have I just become the 10th item of value to them in their life right now? And their YouTube videos are more important, or their cat video, So you really are struggling with something that basic these days in
Yeah.
relationships where you're really not sure how to unplug to stay connected. That can trigger lots of people, because what that does is it starts to trigger this core need that we have to just be chosen and included. It's a very natural thing that we want to be chosen and valued and included in the people's lives that we love.
Mhm.
So that can become a big roadblock. A big roadblock can be busyness. A city like New York, I say, look, we're a city on steroids. And if you're not doing, and if you're not engaging, and if you're not accomplishing, then who exactly are you in our city,
Right.
right? And so just the busy life, the hurried life can become a major distraction in relationships. Of course, those big topics like finances and family, and whether there is healthy sexual connection or touch in the relationship or not, those can become really problematic in relationships. I would say the fourth huge one that we're faced with regularly, if you have children in your home, is parenting, and
Mm.
how you parent and the expectations you have poured out onto your children or child. We can really just start to trigger all sorts of challenges for the couple dynamic, and really create a lot of disharmony.
Yes, so good. I love all of those. So the social media thing and the phone, oh my goodness, that comes up in all most of the conversations. So
Hmm.
100%. And then socially, what are we engaged with? What are the people in our lives? How busy are we? What are we involved in? Yes, we even though we believe our partners are top priority, the way that we operate as if they're at the bottom of the priority list.
Hmm.
So, right? So that's the
Yep.
thing.
Yep.
And then this last thing that you said, what was it? I lost my train of thought. The children. My goodness. Yeah. So, what's really interesting? A lot of couples feel like they want to have another child to feel more connected.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
No, that is not going to help you feel more connected. You might feel like all this love for this child, but it's going to take a toll on your relationship because your attention and your focus and your energy is going to be even additionally split. So that's a challenge that I don't agree with that take. It sounds like you might the way that you're looking, you might actually agree with
Well, I
that
have, I
thing.
haven't, I have a, I agree with you. I agree that that is definitely a strong thought, that when a couple is feeling that disharmony, they
Mm,
can look to either bringing a child into their life or focusing all their attention on their children to try to get to the harmony,
mm.
or to somehow diffuse that feeling of disrepair that they're in with their spouse. And so they begin to really pour into this other person or people that are going to reward them emotionally, and children can do that for a certain amount of time. um,
100%,
so
yes.
yeah, I think that can happen. I do see on the flip side though, I do definitely see that many times in a couple dynamic, a child can be a beautiful place of finding harmony, because there are
Mm.
some, I've seen some incredible couples parent so brilliantly, and they still have some really sad and painful places of disconnection in their own relationship, but they have some really good core common goals for their children. And
Oh, of
so
course.
they can focus on that, and that can help strengthen a part of their relationship.
That's interesting. Yeah, so I agree with that. I think that if the partners are feeling disconnected, that's challenging.
Yeah.
But of course, it might stabilize the home because they have to focus the energies on the child. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also understand that if your emotional needs are not being met and if your affection needs are not being met, that you might get those met through your children, or you
Mhm.
focus on taking care of the children there, therefore then it might bring some harmony to the home. But I don't know.
It's unstable. It's
I
very
don't
it's
know
very
that
fragile.
I would put all my eggs in that basket
No.
to work on the relationship, to focus on the children. That feels backwards to me. But
Yeah.
get that we might stabilize things if we focus on something else as opposed to the discord, but you're not working on the relationship. So
No, yeah, I think the way that if someone is in a situation where they really see no point of connection, I'm
mm,
thinking about that person
mhm,
who's listening, who's saying, I can't find it. It's so cloudy and murky in my
mm,
dynamic with my spouse. I don't know where that point of connection is. Sometimes they can find a small amount of beautiful common ground in the love that they share for their child.
100%.
To put all of the eggs in that basket would actually be so unhealthy, not only for the couple but also
Yeah,
for the children,
exactly.
right?
Yes.
And the other main roadblock I think we're really facing today in our lives is our own negative ruminating thoughts. That is a place of an internal mindset that can become a huge roadblock to health, even if the other relationships are starting to shift and there are some
Mm,
changes. If we're trapped in negative or ruminating toxic thoughts, continuing to replay a past bad experience, continuing whenever there's a fight in the here and now to pull that thing that happened a year or 5 years ago. I mean, we've all been guilty of it if you've been in a
10
relationship,
years ago or more.
right?
Hmm.
To continue to do that and kind of kitchen sink it or pile it all up can really
Hmm.
become a pattern of an unhealthy relationship dynamic. So that's
Yeah.
another roadblock that we can face.
Yeah, so good. And I'm going to add to that something that I use a lot in my writing and conversations and in sessions is the negativity bias,
Yes.
where we just look for all the junk. We focus on the things that we don't like, the things that annoy us, all the negativity stuff. So not only ruminating on things that have been hanging from before or traumas, hurts, fights, unresolved things, but also in the moment, we just pick, 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 and we look for all the bad things. Like, why are we doing that? We're not perfect. If you're
Hmm.
looking for something, you will find. If you're looking
Yeah.
for problems, issues, annoyances, you will find them because nobody's perfect. Don't look for that. Look for the awesomeness. Your partner's trying. Your partner's devoted to you. Your partner wants to do right by you. Look for those things, right? Look for proof
Hmm.
of that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The confirmation bias is huge, right?
Hmm.
We all live with this kind of confirmation bias. And look, I wish I had the magic wand that could say, hey, I don't know why, unfortunately, we have a 5-to-1 ratio where we really need five positive connecting points to discredit or discount within us at times these negative words and ideas that we have experienced or been a part of in
Yeah.
our life. But we need that. So what we have found over and over, research based, right? Science based research shows that when you are generous with your positive thoughts, when you're generous with your gratitude for another person, it
Mm,
if you can only find the smallest external thing, hey, thank you for getting my coffee. Thank you that when I ran out of milk, it was there the next day and I didn't ask you. Thank you for that. Sometimes that's all you can be thankful for. There's nothing deeper to be thankful for in a certain moment. You're too blocked. You start wherever you're at and you
so
begin
good.
to sit even just for one moment before you put your feet on the ground in the morning and just find one thing to be thankful for. I have a Jewish friend who's very involved in his faith, and he has let me hear some of his prayers that he reads. And he says they have in their prayer book a morning prayer before they ever get out of bed. They have a
Mm.
morning prayer where they just say to God, thank you that my soul is alive still and my breath is in me still, kind of thing. And I was actually like, wow, what a beautiful thought to
Mhm. I just got
crystallize.
chills. Beautiful. Yes, so good. All of that is so pretty. And just for the listeners, in terms of that appreciation, and yes, we might have a negativity bias where we focus on all the negative things. And then we have a confirmation bias where we look to confirm, like, my partner sucks, let me go confirm it.
Yeah.
So we have
Yeah.
all these biases, right? But so to help reprogram that, I had an integration experience that went out last month, and just some other content around this, just expanding the appreciation and the gratitude practice, appreciating the differences, why they're good, right? So there's all
Mm,
kinds of things about that in the podcast, on the blog, on our membership site. Just look for those if you look into, I my partner's really getting on my nerves. There's nothing to appreciate. If you're feeling like that, or like, gosh, we're doing all the things right. We want to take it to the next level. I don't know how. I just need a little pick me up. This integration experience will rock your world, and it will help you expand with the different levels of appreciation, where you could look for what we're talking about here, that depth, so you could shift the energy, you could shift the focus, you could shift the mindset that will revive those loving vibes. So go
yeah,
check it
I
out if
love
you're
that,
interested.
Emma. Yeah, I love
Thank
that.
you.
I love that that you're putting this out here to engage in this gratitude practice.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. And sometimes we're looking for something so profound in our
Mhm.
current, culture, but
Yeah.
really the basics work.
Yes.
They work really well. What I have found as I've been creating these practices of gratitude, paying
Mhm.
attention every day to where I can say thank you to my
Yeah.
husband, to my children. The confirmation bias starts working on the other side, where now I can confirm with lots of data, these are beautiful, good, lovely people, right? They have
They
wonderful
don't suck.
pieces. And I love what you said about, even stretching your mind to pull back and say,
Yep.
we are different here. How could this help? I actually have a really practical point that helped me
Mm.
when I did that. My husband and I are quite different human beings,
Yes,
right?
likewise.
I'm Greek and Italian, born in New York, big family. He's Colombian. We're both really passionate people,
Mhm.
but he's more of an introvert, and I talk to think a lot of times, right? And so I for years I couldn't really get like his kind of he was so much more hard to penetrate, and I thought that
Mm.
was a negative thing for a long time. I thought, wow, like I can't get through to him sometimes. I don't know how
Mm.
to do it. But what I learned over time, especially being in a city like New York, is he's brilliant. He's a first responder.
Mm.
He is able to show up because he has this kind of strong layer. It helps him in his life. And he's taught me to be able to not let every single emotion come in and go out, and I now appreciate it, right? Now I say to him, "Wow, you're so amazing that you're able to do that. Can I learn from you?" It used to bother me because I felt like it was the place I couldn't reach him. But once I started to appreciate it, then it was something I could love about him.
That's so good. Yes, I could totally relate. Ditto, I should say. Because I'm the passionate one, I'm the outgoing one. I'm like, la la la, And my husband is so even keel, stoic, like solid. He's the
Yeah.
rock, and you're right. So we've been together for a very long time as well, like over 30 years. And so initially it was like, hello, anybody home? Like I used to
Yeah.
take offense to that. Like, does he even
Yeah.
care? Like this kind of things when you're young and immature and you don't know better. But over the years, that quality has really helped him in his own personal life and professional life. And I lean on that. That is such a
Mhm.
strength, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm being wobbly and like emotional and up and down or whatever, that helps me kind of even keel myself. Like I could
Yeah.
be a lot more sturdy now. Like, a few years ago, and forget it, 30 years ago, forget it. Right? Crazy world over here. But then, like,
Yeah.
you just learn. It's like, oh, let's self regulate. Let's co regulate, even. Right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
that's a beautiful gift. Let's have appreciation for that. So if you have a partner who's quiet and feels distant and feels like they're not there and like they're not emotional or excitable or exciting, there's other beautiful qualities on the flip side of that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So good. I had one more thought about that. It fell out of my head. It's okay. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, aside from appreciating all the differences and why they are a gift to us, that's what I wanted to say. Why they are a gift to us, and just noticing that the differences are a gift. They're there for a reason. We could benefit from them. Like you and I have benefited from this particular difference that we just shared. That's what we could look for in our partners, right? And I created what is called the romantical appreciation list that people could play with.
I
Like,
love
just
it.
let's find other romantical things, or like other partnership things that we appreciate. Let's play with this. Let's focus on the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, perfect. Okay, so then when we are in relationship, Victoria, and we are finding that we're feeling a little stuck, we're
Mm-hmm.
feeling like things are not working, or we might be at the bottom of that curve, right? Like, or the wave just came and we're a little wobbly, or we fell in the water.
Yeah.
Like, what might be some things that could help us in those
Mm-hmm.
moments from our
Mm-hmm.
perspective? Not like, oh, my partner should do this, my partner should do that,
Yeah.
which we're very good at that, right? But what about how we contribute? Any thoughts about this?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that first and foremost, I love this free gift that we all have every day.
Mhm.
It's with
Yes.
us every morning, all day long, is our breath,
Mm,
and I find it to be one of the most powerful gifts we've been given. Um, the moment we take it and we hold it for a moment and we release it, we
mm,
begin to start to regulate our body. And what we understand and know is that when we do this about 4 to 6 times in a moment of our
mm,
day, so quickly that we can do this, we can actually naturally calm our stress receptors and calm our autonomic nervous system, right? I can tell my stomach digest that food really well as much as I want to, and it's not going to do it for me.
why
Right?
not?
Why not? Right? But I can tell, I can pause. As basic as this sounds, I can pause and just take an inhale for 4 seconds, take an exhale for 4 to 5 seconds, and then repeat that 4 to 6 times. And my blood pressure, my body will regulate itself. What a gift. When we begin to do that, we can then in that pause, we can check in with ourselves. Hey, what's really going on right now? What
Yes.
what am I actually irritated by? What am I
Yes.
angry about? We can do a little self-talk and ask ourselves a
Mhm,
curious question. The
mhm,
moment we're willing to be curious with ourselves, we can maybe make space to get curious with the other person,
mm,
not from a sarcastic stance,
yeah,
not from an interrogation position, but
right.
just say, hey, what's happening here? I kind of just came in the room feeling great, wanting to sit and have a time to hang out with you. And,
Mhm.
and things have really gone awry quickly.
Hmm,
Sometimes we use the word in our home, hey, I think we need a reset or a rewind.
nice.
And sometimes we use it right in the moment, right? And again, like you said at the onset of this, we don't want to talk robotically or
Yeah,
clinically all day long. We are real life human beings.
right.
But using these little phrases can sometimes, when we're triggered, redirect us. I have
Mhm.
a dog who's amazing. She's an Aussie Doodle, but she can really get hyper focused on those squirrels outside. And I have to do a little, and when I do the little, she
Mhm.
just perks up and pays attention to me. And for me, that
If we could
pause.
only do that to our children and our husbands, just kidding.
well, well, look, I work on it with me first and foremost. So what I'm suggesting is, look, let's the moment that one person in a system decides to shift, the equilibrium, the temperature, so to speak, will shift.
Yes.
And by the way, sometimes when you're willing to take that courageous step, it's
Mm,
scary because you don't know what the outcome of the relationship will look like if you do start to pay attention to what is valuable and meaningful for you. But what will happen is you will have a lot of clarity and you will be able to do it with loving firmness rather than harshness.
yes,
So I
beautiful
think,
language.
one of the things, the practical things that I look to is I look to the breath. And then once I look to the breath, I ask myself, like, what do I really value right now?
Mm.
And sometimes if you can't come up with anything, it's a good indicator to be quiet. I think I heard John Gottman say, maybe it was Esther Perel as well, that, my marriage survived because of the 3/4 of the things I decided not to say, when I was feeling irritable or
Yeah,
angry. Or
yeah.
my marriage survived because neither one of us wanted a divorce, so to speak, at the same moment, right? And so that other person
Mm,
held steady when the other person was, kind of fledgling all over the place. So I think it's important to do your part. You don't get to do the part for the other person, but you get to do your part. So
That's right.
take the breath, pay attention to your core values.
Mm,
And the last piece is what I think we want to spend a little time talking about, which is, you know, knowing what your vision is for your here and now and where you're headed. Having a clear view of the horizon helps you know where you're going when things get cloudy and dark.
yes, yes, yes. So a couple of things with all of that. Such beautiful perspective in ownership because I spoon feed this. Like this is what I dish out, if you may.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like you can't change the other person. You can't tell them what to do. You can't do their work. Like this is I say this like ad nauseum. And so the way that you explain and share all of that is just so gorgeous. So thank you for the reinforcement and the reinforcement. So one thing that's coming up for me is when we are triggered and when we are struggling, before we even get to the values, how might we get out of our own way? Like what if we take that deep breath and then what? Can we identify why am I getting stuck here, right?
Hmm.
Like, any
Hmm.
thoughts about in that moment to kind of help
Yeah.
reset?
I mean, look, when you pause and take the breath, sometimes you just go right back into those feelings like, this is a nightmare, right?
Mm,
Or I'm frustrated, or that boss is just driving me crazy. So it takes time. I really think it's critical for us to remember that our brain and our mind, especially our mind, which lives inside of our brain, has muscle memory.
mm,
And I look, if you haven't gone to the gym for 6 months and you show up, you know, month 7, day 1, you're going to be feeling it if you push yourself too hard, right? So
mhm,
you're going to start slow, steady, and consistent. And
mhm,
so you begin with the breath, get connected with it, see if you can get calm. Once you do
mm,
that, I like to add a word that kind of can anchor. Some people like to empty their mind, so to speak. I think
mhm.
that's helpful. Then you need to decide what you're going to fill it with. So just walking
Mm.
around with your mind emptied is really, unproductive. There's just too many things that are going to invade. We have trillions of
Mm,
thoughts constantly coming and moving,
mhm,
neurons and connectors there in our conscious and subconscious. And
mhm.
what we really understand now is that we used to think that 95% was like in pen, and maybe we could affect 5%. And, over the last 30 years, with all the brain neuroscans and studies, we see that like 95%. It's in pencil. It is written. There's epigenetics there. There's narratives that we have coming in through different generations, through our
Oh,
family of origin experiences, wanted and unwanted. But they don't have to be what guide our life. They don't have to control us.
right. Yep.
We can actually be controlled by our mind, or we can start learning how to control our mind.
Perfect.
So what I would say is, start slow. Don't be harsh with yourself, right? You got to offer yourself that compassion.
Mhm,
And compassion doesn't say, "Hey, you can get away with it every day, no problem." But it has a sense of kindness and
mhm,
tenderness to say, "Okay, I see why you're here. I
mm.
understand what informed this ruminating thought, this fearful, anxious thought. I get that, but we don't have to continue to be controlled by that anymore." So
Right.
you pause and you pay attention to your breath, and then you start to locate. And this piece does take a little more time. You start to sit back and just locate. What do I value? What are my core values?
So before we go to the core values, I think that something in that place with that breath and when we're feeling stuck and we're agitated in the moment, I think that what we wanted to offer was that is there something that you could release?
Hmm.
Right? Is there
Yeah.
something that what am I how am I contributing to this moment? Like what is happening that how am I choosing to look at my partner or at this situation or at myself that's not serving me, that's keeping me stuck, it keeps adding wood to my fire, that keeps agitating me or creating anxiety and angst and pain? How can I let that one go? Can I look at it differently in any particular way? Can I own what I'm doing with
Hmm.
that? And
Hmm.
then I could let go of the way that tend to look at it, reframe it, and let go of the negative way of looking at it. So then that's an automatic peacemaker, like
Yeah.
automatic self-regulation, automatic self-soothing, automatic transformation. You could go have all the conversations now, right? So
Yeah.
that's the personal accountability piece.
Maybe another way of even saying it at times is giving yourself permission, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're waiting for a doctor to prescribe us something or even a therapist to give us the tip. The reality is each of us live every day with the gift of freedom. We have free
Yes.
will. So we can give ourselves permission to say, I know that normally when that topic comes up, I get really frustrated. We get into a fight. I don't talk to my spouse for the next 24 hours or 3 days. And hey, you know what? I want to do it different this time. I mean, you
Lovely.
literally have the permission, just like you have the permission to wake up tomorrow morning and start a different routine than you had yesterday. You have that permission. So
You have a
even
choice.
you have a choice.
You have the
So in
option.
this
Yep.
moment, I think we could even sit with, just from this morning before you have listened to this podcast, has
Mhm.
there been a negative thought or experience
Mhm.
within yourself that nobody knows about or an interaction with someone else?
Yeah.
And would you like to just release it and say, hey, you know what? I don't want to give that any more time and attention. I'm not
So
going to
to the
go vent it.
listeners,
Yeah, I'm not going to go vent it out to someone. What do you want to do with that?
mhm. So to the listeners, just heed that for a second. Take that deep breath. Identify anything that's getting your that's prickling you. What's happening there for you? And if you could make that choice now, like you don't have to sit in anything that you don't like. You have a choice, right?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I
So
love it. I
good.
think
Yes.
it's so critical. I'm actually, while you were saying it, I was just doing it. I'm thinking, what could I release right now
Mm,
that I experienced in the earlier part of my day?
mm,
I had an uncomfortable conversation today, at
mm.
some point, and I kind of just said, look, saying in this moment, I don't have to have a big, huge emotion about this. I
Right.
I won't be a betrayal to yourself if you decide to not explode.
Yes.
I think this is an interesting thing that I've
Yes.
noticed is
Mhm.
that sometimes we have told ourselves, and I'm not sure exactly where this message came from for each person listening, but that
Mhm.
if you decide not to make a huge deal of it, then
Yes.
you're a doormat or you're being walked all over, or
Yes.
you're not powerful and strong. But strength can also look like being silent, not because someone is silencing us, but because we're choosing silence.
So good. You know, something else that and another analogy that might fit well here is, you could be strong and sturdy and rigid like a tree, but a little bit of wind comes and you fall over. But you could decide to be flexible and mindful and present, and you could be like a palm tree. So the storm comes and you just kind of like, okay,
Love that.
right? And then I love what you're saying. Doesn't mean because you choose not to engage, it doesn't mean that you're giving your power away. If anything,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm not engaging in nonsense. I'm not giving my power away. It's just
Yeah.
the opposite.
It's just the opposite. We
Yeah.
actually give our attention and our energy to things that we don't want to expand. And what we know
Right.
is that what we give our energy to, it does expand. We know that we've all experienced it.
Mhm.
So it's really making a let me tell you something. In a family with Greeks and Italians, there was no shortage of loud conversations. In
Mhm.
my home, you needed to have 3 to 5 points why any thought was important, right? You needed to make sure you had the Socratic method in mind, and you're going to defend it. And sometimes the choosing to be quiet or not engaging, you could feel like the weak person in the room.
Mm.
And so you really have to, again, this is why it's so important to do some of this work on your own, to quiet your mind, calm your heart, and then decide how you want to show up. And
That's
if you
right.
find that you're being swayed or pushed, take a step back for a minute.
That's right. That's
And,
right.
and
Very
that's
good.
okay to do.
Yeah. I love that you said before that you guys use in your home something like, okay, let's reset or something like
Yeah.
that. Something that I use my husband and my daughter use it slightly differently, but something that I know that I use because I'm the more emotional one in my family. So I'm the one that has to use it more. They're like both even keels. Like I wouldn't even know if there's a heartbeat, just kidding. But for me, it's like, okay, ooh. So if they're saying stuff and I'm getting triggered, or if I'm trying to get my needs met, I'm trying to have a conversation and I'm not getting the response or the engagement that I would like, and I know that I'm gonna be going to funky places, I might say something like, "You know what? I need a minute." Or if
Yeah.
they're trying to engage with me in a way that I'm like, that's not what I
Yeah.
wanted, or it's not going the right way, or what the hell are they doing, or whatever, then I might be like, "You know what? I actually need a minute. Let me think about this." Right? And if they keep coming for some reason, if they don't respect that as a boundary, or as a pause, if they can't hear it, I should say, then I might be a little more explicit. I'm like, "You know what? I'm getting triggered. Let me just think
Yeah.
about this, and then let me just come back to you in a few minutes or in a little while."
Yeah.
Beautiful, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are we gonna go tit for tat, butt heads, argue, escalate? Like, no, we could do that's a waste of time. So
Yeah.
for sure, very, very nice. Now let's go back to the values thing. I love that you were starting to have to bring that into the conversation. Can you say a little bit more specifically about how to identify values?
Yeah. Let's think about that for a moment. Before we get to our core values, there's this really strong idea that every human being has been gifted with just innate things, right? You came into this world and you
Yes.
have certain core internal needs. And
Mhm.
those needs will sometimes show up externally. They will often be sought after to pursue and to feel and fuel externally. But we
Mm.
all have these really strong needs to be affirmed, right? To be heard and understood as a
Yes.
human being, to be valued, to be touched in non-sexual
Mm.
ways that just mean we have affection in our life.
Yes.
In our world, I think a lot of times touch generally gets equated that, oh, that's going to be sexual, and
That's gonna
especially
lead to sex. Yeah.
yeah. And so often we'll even see, and you may have experienced this yourself. I know I have at seasons of my own marriage where I would even withhold touch because I knew it was going to be a
Mhm.
pathway in my husband's mind to being sexual. And I had to
Mm.
really shut that thinking down and change it, that I
Yes.
need to give a hug or a kiss, even if I'm not going to be sexual. That is a form of being sexual sometimes, but there's also times where it's just affection. It's
Yes.
non-sexual touch. We all need to be chosen and included.
Mhm.
Every human life needs to feel meaning and purpose. And this is a huge one at this season of life, at this time in life, really understanding when you can compare your life to a million different people at any second
Hmm.
on X or Twitter, on YouTube, on your social media. It's really challenging
Yeah.
to feel a sense of purpose and meaning. Even if
Mm.
you're at the top of your career, you could be at the highest place, that place you wanted to achieve more than anything else, and you can have that ache inside of yourself. Does this really
Sure.
matter? Right?
Hmm.
Or you could
Interesting.
invest yourself for 10, 30 years in something, and you walk out the door of a company or of a business, a relationship, and it doesn't seem like it was of any meaning or purpose.
Mm, mm,
So core values, I believe, are really first and foremost, you have to tap into what matters.
mm.
Where do you find your sense of meaning and purpose in life? So your core values come from who you see yourself as, and then who you want to be in relationship to others.
Perfect. So a couple of things with that. The way that I was hearing you and receiving all of those beautiful values, or the terms that you use to describe them, they landed for me as needs.
Hmm.
In my mind, I'm making a distinction between values and needs. So needs
Okay.
are things that I'm gonna need to survive or to be okay, to be well. Values are things that I want to live by in my mind,
Yes.
right? So that's how I'm
Yeah.
distinguishing that. And so I think that both are extremely important in relationships and in
Hmm.
interactions. So, okay, how do we get our needs met? Everything that you mentioned. And then what is the filter for the values? How do we filter how do I get those needs met? What's appropriate, what's not appropriate, right? Because I could get those needs met in all kinds of weird ways and so don't align with my values or what's right for me or for
Yeah.
humans or for, morally or whatever.
Yeah.
So just playing with that for ourselves. Like, what are our standards? What are our parameters to more our morals to live by?
Yeah.
What are the expectations? And then how do we get our needs met? Filtering through that so
Yeah.
that we get them met in a way that aligns. Because we could get needs met in funky ways, and that doesn't. We're not happy at the end of the day.
Well,
They
yeah,
weren't
there's no
really met.
cohesion. There's no cohesion.
Yeah.
There are moments where we have a moral, if we have a moral compass, right, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak.
Yeah.
And that moral compass is saying, "Hey, here's the place where you're going to be feeling like you're thriving in life." Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can meet your needs that you believe you have in all sorts of ways that are
Right.
unhealthy
Right.
or dysfunctional or even
Mm-hmm.
pathological, right?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
can, and so we see that, and that can happen to any one of us at any given moment of life.
Sure.
And sometimes we're looking to an addiction to meet a need, right?
Right.
We're looking to another relationship, an external relationship from the ones that we're in. We cut all the people in our life out that we know and search for someone else who doesn't know us so we can be something completely brand new. I mean, this can easily happen now. Like, you don't
Sure.
have to really these opportunities, I like to, they come to you actually.
Mm.
And so you really do at this moment in history have to have your feet kind of rooted. I
Right.
think it's
Right.
really essential to think about what roots you.
Right.
For me, I have a really strong spiritual center in my life. And that
Mhm.
spiritual center roots me because I recognize, because of that spiritual center, that there are only certain things other human beings can satisfy,
Right.
right? Humans, other human relationships can bring satisfaction to my life. But when I look to my husband or my children or my work to be the sole source of satisfaction for me, I really start to get depleted and overwhelmed and
Yeah.
frustrated. Right. So that's for me, that's a really important thing. And everybody maybe comes from a different place, but checking in, like, well, do I have a moral compass? And
Mhm.
where do I source that from?
Mm.
Where are my beliefs being formed from? As much as we want to believe that we're just coming up with these things on our own, we're very influenced by our culture, our socioeconomic standing,
Sure.
by our sex, you know, whether we came into this world as male or female, what family of origin we have. These messages shape us.
Mhm.
So that's a big place.
Yeah, totally. And so I love that because if you are meeting the need for connection and love by having an affair, but your value is to be loyal and to be a good husband or wife, then you're shooting yourself on the foot, right?
Yeah.
So definitely tying those things in a way that you really have your own back and your partner's back at the end of the day. Gorgeous. And I love the icing on that cake, which was that the values need to be grounded in somewhere, spiritual
Yeah.
belief or whatever it
Yeah.
is for you. And yes, and everything else, all the other influences, that would all be repatterned. All those beliefs, whatever, all the things that are impacted and influence how we are formed all be revisited and
Yeah.
reprogrammed.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because I like to say, and I borrow this from Joe Dispenza, who says that we're just a habit. Everything about us is a habit, like the way that we
Yeah.
think, the way in our thoughts create our brain chemistry, our neurology, our biology, like just even our bodies, like we could reprogram everything. Like
Mm.
everything about us is a habit. We are a big old habit. So we have to make choices, right? And we have to be intentional. That's how we create our life. Otherwise, we're living life by default and not a happy one potentially.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so from there, then you mentioned the vision, right? So then how do you use this stuff to create a relationship vision? And then what? What do we do with that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love to do with my clients is a vision kind of
Mhm.
exercise where
Yes.
I encourage couples to sit with one another to just brainstorm about
Mhm.
really key things that are important to them, right? Generally, some general things that come up for many people are their family, how they use money, what money represents to them, and how they
Mm,
use it with each other. And do they want to have an external locus of focus with their generosity, right?
nice. Yes.
We think about what they value. Do they have any core beliefs from maybe a spiritual practice to strong beliefs that they have taken from maybe their culture even, and do they want to utilize these? A lot of times couples are thinking about wanting to be adventurous and fun and playful, and how
Yes.
do you incorporate that with responsibilities that
Mm,
you hold dear to yourself?
yes.
So you kind of take some time to brainstorm about those things. What do I think about my family? What do I think about finances? What do I think about any kind of spiritual practice or life practice? How do I do that with myself? And at what point do I want to extend that out to others in my life or in my
Mhm.
circle of influence? And then you see where you can match that up. And sometimes you and your spouse will write all sorts of things down, write them slightly differently, but they're about the same thing, right? We want to be in a trusting relationship where there's space to have conflict and communicate about it, right?
Mhm.
We want to be connected to each other's dreams. Maybe not all of
Mhm.
each other's dreams, but we want to have a core dream that we're moving towards together. So you think about
Yes.
it that way. And then what you do in the end is you end up with a vision statement. And this vision statement really becomes a sentence that focuses a lot of your core values that you
Mhm.
do see eye to eye about. You may have some that you're not going to be able to really
Mhm.
practically move towards together. But when you find this common ground, it does tend to catalyze you to want to be more accepting. And that's a piece
Mm.
we didn't talk about earlier, but I do think that it's a critical piece. You know, at the point where we start accepting where our
Yes.
power exists, but also the limits of our own human power,
Mm,
then
yes.
we have a lot of peace. When I start to realize, or you start to realize that, hey, I can influence other people with my responses, with my thoughts and my behaviors, but I can't make decisions for those other people.
That's right.
Right. So when we accept the differences, then we're actually able to live with more harmony, and we're able to pursue a core vision together.
Love it.
And one other thing I think is really helpful. This is just how I've done it over the last decade, because I have a vision statement, but let's be honest. Sometimes we're not going back and looking at that.
Right.
Even a
Mhm.
even a statement that we've come up with. But
Yeah.
what I do encourage people, if they do take the time to make it, put it somewhere, post it,
Yes.
somewhere, even have it as a reminder that shows up on your phone once a month if
Mhm.
you got your phone in your hand. What we've thought about is even trickling that further down to just a word. And so for the last decade, I just really encourage my clients, hey, even if you don't have a statement or you do, is there one word every
To
year
capture
that
it.
you could pay attention to and
Mhm.
start to think about yourself psychologically, biologically, socially, culturally, sexually, spiritually from this word?
Hmm.
And see what you learn. See where you're strong and where you're really making some mature advances in your life.
I love that. So that's interesting because I do the same thing. I do find that I use the focus word every year, but I never looked at it the way that you just described. That's just so gorgeous. It takes it to the next level. And that is like, oh, let me filter all aspects of myself through this word. Wow, that's just super powerful. And for the audience, and even for us, so we're not above anybody. Just to reinforce this for myself, I'm going to speak for myself, not for you. That we're always in progress, right? So
Yeah.
we're perfect as we are because if this is the moment in time that we are, and this is how we're supposed to be right now. But we are limited by our human experience. And then how do we continue to become more of the fullness of who we are? So that's kind of the message that I keep sharing, I guess.
Yeah.
And so this means that, okay, what is my version of like, what is it that I want to do for next year? How do I want to show up better as a wife, as a mom, as a therapist, as a human, whatever, all the roles? And also invite others into that because then as a collective, we can continue to become better. So that's part of the message. And of course, I try to bring that within my home
Hmm.
and I don't force any of this. So for those of you who are listening, this is the message that I wanted to fine tune. If you are the person that's Victoria and me in your home and your family or your partner is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that happens a lot, right? So
Yes,
like
it
I see it even in
does.
the couples therapy. One partner's all into stuff like this and the other one isn't. that's totally cool. But just know that even if you shift your energy a little bit, even if you change your approach a little bit, even if your words shift a little bit, or if you just bring some new concept into your own mind, that it just
Yep.
percolates. Like just
Yes.
you shifting yourself, like we said earlier, it helps shift all the things. So just
Hmm.
worry or be mindful or intentional about you,
Yep.
and all the other things will fall into place as well. If you're having a hard time, like, well, my partner won't do any of these fun things with me, it's okay.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
start where
And
you're at.
I'm happy you brought that up because,
Yeah.
that's more likely the dynamic in most
Yeah.
relationships, right?
Yeah.
There tends to be one person with a stronger desire for motivational, catalytic kind of change, right? And
Yes.
the other partner's like, can we just go and have a slice of pizza together, right? We don't want to come up with a word and have a vision statement. And look, I think it's so important to be practical
Yeah.
relationally
Yeah.
and to remember, if you're in what I would hope would be a lifelong relationship, right? Then all the change doesn't need to happen right now. You know,
Beautiful.
it
Yes.
doesn't.
How do we activate a shift? How do we
Mhm.
inspire ourselves? How do we inspire our partner? How do we reprogram some things? So we're going long here. So if we could do a quick takeaway in terms of how do we apply that idea to the holidays that are coming up, into relationship rituals, so we can enrich the relationship and invite yumminess in higher levels of relating with our partner and creating the relationship that we want.
I think it's really important to stay simple with what you're going to implement. Take one thing. And if that one thing is for the next, 7 days, I'm going to take a breath. And while I'm breathing in the morning, I'm going to focus on one word that I can be thankful for.
Mhm.
Do that. That will activate the mind. And as you build muscle mass in your mind, you'll be able to layer. The brain loves to layer. It really does. So you can layer how you grow that
Mm.
experience and that practice, which will become the habit. So I would say those things are really the place to activate, to shift in in those little moments you give yourself. And then the last piece is really where you're reprogramming. And the reprogramming is like as simple as, hey, my computer works great. And I noticed that there's a little virus in this app. Hey, I'm going to delete that app, so to
Mm.
speak. I'm going to delete that thought. I'm not going to give myself permission to keep thinking about it all day. And I'm going to engage myself somewhere else productive.
Oh, I love it. Very, 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 very pretty. So I would add that for the holidays, I would encourage the listeners, if this resonates for them, to think about what is meaningful for them, what touches their hearts, and what do they think will touch their partner's hearts, and
Mm,
investing in that. Because a lot of times it becomes all about the material things, the doing, the food, the just the making of the holiday, but not really of the feeling of the holiday.
mhm,
So I would encourage people to feel and approach the holidays from a place of how can I enrich my relationship? How can I nurture myself, my partner, the relationship, and focus on that versus so much on the other stuff. So
I
that
love.
activation, right? Just to enrich, to inspire, to shift, to up level what we focus on. Because we focus too much on
Mhm,
the low vibration things, the material, the
mhm,
doing, the da da da, as opposed to like the feeling, the giving, the compassion, the generosity, right? Just giving
mhm,
of ourselves, not just stuff. And then for the rituals, what I would add is like if people could think about how do I want the new year to start?
mhm.
What kind of rituals do I want to bring into the new year so I have a richer relationship in 2025? 2025, quarter of a century, guys. Fabulous, right? So let's turn the page. What do we want that to look like? How am I going to show up with my best self? What do my best self feels like looking like in 2025? What
Yeah.
kind of rituals do I want to have? What does the rituals look like? What my morning ritual look like with my partner? It could be morning coffee. You guys have heard me talk about this before, but just to reinforce it, morning coffee, let's connect, let's set an intention. Why don't we touch base during the day? My husband and I do this. What does your schedule look like? What does your schedule look like? And we
Yeah.
find gaps during the day to connect. Nighttime, what is the sleep hygiene? What is the couple part of that?
Mhm.
Just little places, and we call this connection habits. So how do we build that into the practice, into the lifestyle, so we could enrich our relationship and really up level how we're living. And it's not
Yeah.
just so monotonous and grindy like we tend to experience if we're not intentional.
Yeah.
And then the last thought I love that you offer about the ruminating thing and the just watching your mind. Yes, please watch your thoughts. Your thoughts are so powerful. You're creating your reality. Later, you mentioned before what I forget what words you use, Victoria, but the way I translate that or the way that I usually use it is like where you focus on growth. You use the word
Yeah.
expand, I
Yeah.
think.
Expand. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So when you focus on growth, so don't focus on the crap, focus on the
Hmm.
good. There's always crap, right? Why
Yeah.
we're going to focus on that? We could, doesn't mean that you live in la la land and, and you ignore things that you have to address. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying don't fuel that, right?
Yes.
Do what you got
Yeah.
to do, but focus on the blessings. There are plenty of good, yummy things in there. And as you guys know, if you work with us privately, we start all of the sessions with appreciation. So, even when you feel the most bad, that you still find appreciations, right? So there's always
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
All
I love
right.
that, Emma. It's been such a, privilege to talk about this and to remind ourselves about how we can head on the path that we want, and this is contagious. It really
Yeah.
is, right? Just like negative thoughts can be contagious, positive thinking and showing up and taking responsibility and being accountable, it is
That's the thing.
contagious. The
That's right.
people around will sometimes resist it, so be prepared for that. um Steady yourself in that, that kind of resolve that, hey, this is a beautiful good thing and I want to stay on this course, but there's not always going to be positive encouragement on the course.
Mm,
So, have that resistance in your spirit that's in a good direction, like perseverance,
resilient. Yep.
resilience inside of you. And yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you for allowing me to come and be a part of this conversation with you.
I so enjoyed having you on. I love your perspectives. I love your energy. I love how your wisdom, right, and your insights, and of course all your clinical know-how. But you're just such a beautiful person. Any last second message that you want to leave the audience with for the holidays and for the new year?
Oh, I think, what I love to tell people is love one another well, because love works. It really
Yes.
does. And it's worth the journey. It's not always an easy journey. It's messy, it's uncomfortable at times to learn how to love well, but
Mm,
it's really worth taking that journey. And in a world where I think a lot of people have been disappointed and discouraged and
mm,
wounded even by the people they love, I want to remind people that being generous with forgiveness is also your gift. You have the permission to forgive and to
mm.
release a debt over other people in your life. And this is
Wow.
a powerful way to enter a new year and a new day. Every day
Oof.
you have an opportunity to release the debt over somebody through forgiveness. Whether
So
they're
good.
open to that or not, you have that freedom.
But you could do that. It doesn't matter what they're doing.
Yeah.
So good, my goodness. So wise. So it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing time with you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Emma, for all you do and your commitment. It's been beautiful to watch you as a colleague and
Mm,
your intense investment in wanting to see and give yourself to your clients, but also resource people so that they can have these tools outside of the therapy practice, that we care about how
yeah.
people are living in good ways and healthy ways. So thank you for your commitment to that.
Oh, thank you so much for acknowledging that. I really appreciate that. Thank you, love. And to the audience, I will see you at the next one. Bye.